Before the advent of COVID, there had been other strategies alike that were orchestrated to actualize mass annihilation of people. The whole world thought wars, natural disasters, famine, drought, plagues and diseases were necessitated by natural forces. On the contrary, they were planned and organized to achieve massive extermination of human beings from the face of the earth. But how was this successfully executed? One of such evil strategies are the orchestration of so-called natural disasters.
These were disasters that caused the deaths of several people.
Think earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions and tsunamis. They don't need much explanation. The earth shakes, people die. But did you know that many of these natural disasters nowadays are actually caused by man? Ever heard of HAARP? High Frequency Active Aurora Research Program? An American military research program used to excite the ionosphere via high-frequency signals. Using it influences the weather in a profound way.
Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. By firing trillion-watt lasers, you rip apart the electrons, creating what are called ions, and these ions act like seeds, like dust particles, bringing down rain and even lightning. In the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam War, to wash out the Viet Cong. For decades now, these governments have been alleged to have experimented with weather control, but nothing conclusive. This time we're bringing in the laws of physics rather than simply waving our hands and uttering mumbo-jumbo. We're actually using trillion-watt lasers now for floods, for agriculture, farmers, for people planning wedding parties, football games, you name it, outdoor events and agriculture and flooding and even hurricanes. All of them could be subject to weather modification.
Natural disasters can be and are triggered by the cabal to get rid of people. How convenient. Others are engaging even in an eco-type of terrorism, whereby they can alter the climate, set off earthquakes and volcanoes remotely through the use of electromagnetic waves. So there are plenty of ingenious minds out there that are at work finding ways in which they can wreak terror upon other nations. It's real.
You could actually spray sulfuric acid in the stratosphere 20 kilometers over our head and use that to stop the planet warming up in a ugly tech fix.
You can spray something into the atmosphere to change.
Spray pollution into the atmosphere to stop it warming.
How do you do this?
You'd start with a fleet of modified business jets and say 20,000 tons of sulfuric acid into the stratosphere every year. And each year you have to put a little more. And this doesn't, in the long run, mean that you can forget about cutting emissions. We will need to rein in.
No, we'll get to it eventually.
People are terrified about talking about this because they're scared that it will prevent us cutting emissions. We put 50 million tons of sulfuric acid in the air now as pollution, and it kills 1 million people a year worldwide. We're talking about 1% of that.
1% more, we're just killing 10,000 more people.
You can do math.
What happens to the sulfuric acid after it's sprayed? Does it just stay up there?
No, it rains down, but it's a tiny addition to what we're already.
In effect, through acts of geoengineering, the so-called natural disasters that have plagued many nations of the world and had hitherto been attributed to natural forces, have been perpetrated for many years and have led to the deaths of millions.
In fact, I asked a question because, you know, when you talk about geoengineering, which is the deliberate large-scale technological, they say intervention, which is a diplomatic word for manipulation. So I would say it's the technological manipulation of an environmental process in the Earth's climate system.
Through these false technological interventions, which really are a manipulation of the Earth's climate system, these so-called natural disasters are further effectuated.
Chemtrails. Remember? clear blue skies and white fluffy clouds? Neither do we. They disappeared several decades ago, when all of a sudden, planes left strange lines in the sky that remained there instead of disappearing after a few minutes, which would be normal for contrails, condensation trails. These new trails, however, not only remain in our skies, they spread out to form a thin and all-enveloping cloud cover. This new type of trails, often raggedy on one side, were soon coined chemtrails, chemical trails instead of condensation trails. Years of testing went by. Chemicals were found all right, and to an alarming extent. Barium, cadmium, aluminum, titanium, strontium,